going, guys? It's your boy Isma. Welcome back to another YouTube video. And today I'm going to be working on active reconnaissance, and we'll be learning how to use simple tools such as tracesuit, ping, telnet, and web browser to gather information. Let's move on to task 1. Task 1, introduction. In the first room of network security module, we focus on passive reconnaissance. In the second room, we focus on active reconnaissance and the essential tools related to it. We learn to use web browser to collect more information about our target. Moreover, we discuss using simple tools such as ping, traceroute, telnet, and NC to gather information about the network system and services. We learned in the previous room, passive reconnaissance lets you gather information about your target without any kind of direct engagement or connection. You are watching from afar or checking publicly available information. Active reconnaissance requires you to make some kind of contact with your target. This contact can be a phone call or a visit to the target company under some pretense to gather more information, usually as a part of social engineering. Alternatively, it can be direct connection to the target system, whether visiting their website or checking if their firewalls has SSH port open. Think of it like you are closely inspecting windows and door locks. Hence, it is essential to remember not to engage in active reconnaissance work before getting signed legal authorization from the client. In this room, we focus on active reconnaissance. Active reconnaissance begins with direct connections made to the target machine. Any such connection might leave information in the logs showing the client's IP address, time of the connection, and duration of the connection, among other things. However, not all connections are suspicious. It is possible to let your active reconnaissance appear as a regular client activity. Consider web browsing. No one would suspect a browser connected to a target web server among hundreds of other legitimate users. You can use such techniques to your advantage when working as a part of the red team attackers and don't want to alarm the blue team defenders. In this room, we go through various tools commonly bundled with most operating systems or easily obtainable. We begin with the web browser and its built-in developer tools. Furthermore, we show you how a web browser can be armed to become an efficient reconnaissance framework. Afterwards, we discuss other bin tools such as ping, traceroute, and telnet. All these programs require connections to the target, and hence our activity would fall under active reconnaissance. This room is of interest to anyone who wants to become familiar with essential tools and see how they can use them in active reconnaissance. The web browser developer tools might take some effort to gain familiarity, although it offers a graphical user interface. The command line tool, The command line tools covered are relatively straightforward to use. Important notice, please note that if you're not subscribed, the attack box won't have the internet access, so you will need to use the VPN to complete the questions that require internet access. Answer the question below. Ensure that you understand why these tools fall under active reconnaissance. Launch your attack box and ensure that it is ready. You will need it to answer the questions, especially in later tasks. So let's go ahead and start this attack box. And it is now starting. We're going to give it some time and we'll see you in the next section. Moving on to task 2, web browser. The web browser can be a convenient tool, especially that it is that it is readily available on all systems. There are several ways where you can use a web browser to gather information about a target. On the transport level, the browser connects to TCP port 80 by default. When the website is accessed over HTTP, TCP port 443 by default when the website is accessed over HTTPS. Since 80 and 443 are default ports for HTTP and HTTPS, the web browser does not show them in the address bar. However, it is possible to use custom ports to access a service. For instance, HTTPS //127 .0.0.1. I'll just let y'all read that. We'll connect to 127.0.0.1 localhost at port 8834 via HTTPS protocol. If there is an HTTPS server listing on the port, we will receive a web page. While browsing a web page, you can press Ctrl-Shift-I on a PC or Option plus Command plus I on a Mac to open a developer's tool on Firefox. Similar shortcuts will also get you started with Google Chrome or Chromium. Developers tools let us inspect many things that your browser has received and exchange with the remote server. For instance, you can view and even modify the JavaScript files, inspect the cookies set on your system, and discover the folder structure on the site content. Below is a screenshot of the Firefox developer tools. Chrome developed in the DevTools is quite similar. I'm gonna just go ahead and click on this so y'all know what it's talking about. There are plenty of add-ons for Firefox and Chrome that can help in penetration testing. Here are a few examples. Foxy Proxy. Let's quickly change the proxy server you are using to access the target's website. This browser's extension is convenient when you are using a tool such as Burp Sweep, or if you need to switch proxy servers regularly, you can get Foxy Proxy for Firefox from here. User Agent Switcher and Manager gives you the ability to pretend to be accessing the web page from a different operating system or a different web browser. In other words, you can pretend to be browsing a site using an iPhone when in fact you are accessing it from Mozilla Firefox. You can download User Agent Switchers and Manager for Firefox here. Also, WAP Pelizer provides insight about the technologies used on the visited websites. Such extension is handy primarily when you collect all these informations while browsing the website. Likely any other user, a screenshot of Web Appalizer is shown below. You can find Web Appalizer for Firefox here. Over time, you might find a new extension that fit perfectly in your workflow. Moving on to answer the question below. Browse the following website and ensure that you have opened your developer tools on Attack Box Firefox or the browser of your computer. Using the developer tools, figure out the total number of questions. When you use hint, locate the JavaScript, inspect the file and figure it out, the total numbers of questions. Alright, so we have to locate the JavaScript file. Alright guys, moving on to answer the question below. Browse to the following website. We're going to click on this right here and ensure that you have opened your developer tools on Attack Box Firefox or the browser on your computer. Using the developer tool, figure out the total number of questions. So we're going to go ahead and well, if you haven't already, just click on that. I'm just go ahead and click to the page where it's asking us to do. So I'm gonna go right here. Now I'm going to look for script, right, which is right here. It's not showing what it needs to show, so I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. Try it in here, inspect. Alright, good. It's right here. So basically we're gonna click on this. Okay. We're gonna look for script once again. It's not sure where it went. I'm just gonna go ahead and close it out and redo it. So looking for script again. Alright, right there. I'm not sure why it disappeared. So now I'm gonna type reveal in source panel. So as you could tell, well, whenever you click on that, there's gonna be, you're gonna scroll on top. You guys couldn't see it, but it's gonna say reveal on source panel, and right here you have your answers. And as you can see, you just have 1, 2, and it goes all the way to 8 total. And after this, it's gonna go into another function coding thing. But anyways, just come in here and type in 8, and that should be it. That's right. And now we are free to move on to the next one. Alright guys, moving on to task 3, ping. Ping shall remind you of the game ping pong. Table tennis. You throw the ball and expect to get it back. The primary purpose of ping is to check whether you can reach the remote system, that the remote system can reach you back. In other words, initially this was used to check network connectivity. However, we are more interested in its different uses, checking whether the remote system is online. In simple terms, the ping command sends a packet to a remote system and the remote system replies. This way you can conclude that the remote system is online and that the network is working between the two systems. If you prefer a pickier definition, the ping is a command that sends the ICMP echo packet to a remote system. If the remote system is online and the ping packet was correctly routed and not blocked by any firewall, the remote system should send back an ICMP echo reply. Similarly, the ping reply should reach the first system if appropriately routed and not blocked by any firewall. The objective of such a command is to ensure that the target system is online before we spend time carrying out more detailed scans to discover the running operating system services. On the TACbox terminal, you can start using a ping 10.10.247.253 or ping hostname, where we will try that. In the later systems, in the later systems needs to resolve hostname to an IP address before sending the ping packet. If you don't specify the count on a Linux system, you will need to hit Ctrl+C to force it to stop. Hence, you might consider ping C10.10.247.253. So we're going to try their recommendation. Hold on, I'm going to see. No, it's definitely it. Alright, we'll try that. Ping /C Sorry about that. And it should be pinging the IP address 10 times. So if you want to send 10 packets, this is the equivalent to ping /n 10.10.10.247.253 on an MS Windows system. Technically speaking, ping falls under the protocol ICMP, Internet Control Message Protocol. ICMP supports many types of queries, but in particular we are interested in ping ICMP echo/t type 8 and ping reply ICMP echo reply type 0. Getting into ICMP details is not required to use ping. In the following example, we have specified the total count of packets to 5 from the attack box terminal. We start pinging 10.10.247.253. We learned that 10.10.247.253 is up and not blocking ICMP echo requests. Moreover, any firewalls and routers on the packet route are not block ICMP echo requests either. In the example above, we saw clearly that the target system is responding. The ping output is an indicator that it is online and reachable. We have transmitted 5 packets and we received 5 replies. We noticed that on average it took 0.475 milliseconds for the reply to reach our system, with the maximum being 0.636 ms. From a penetration testing point of view, we will try to discover more about this target. We will try to learn as much as possible, for example, which ports are open and which service are running. Let's consider the following case. We shut down the target virtual machine and then try to ping 10.10.247.253. As we would expect in the following example, we don't receive any reply. In this case, we can already know that we have shut down the target computer that has 10.10.247.253 for each ping. The system we are using, attack box, in this case is responding with destination host unreachable. We can see that we have transmitted 5 packets, but none was received, resulting in 100% packet lost. Generally speaking, we don't get a ping reply back. There are a few explanations that would explain why we didn't get a ping reply. For example, the destination computer is not responsive, possibly still booting up or turned off, or the OS has crashed. It is unplugged from the network, or there is a faulty network device across the path. A firewall is configured to block such packet. The firewall might be a piece of software running on the system itself or a separate network appliance. Note that MS Windows Firewall blocks ping by default. Your system is unplugged from the network. Alright, now we're going to be moving on to answer the questions below. Which options would you use to set the size of the data carried by the ICMP echo request? So I'm going to go ahead and put /s on for this one. Now moving on, what is the size of the ICMP header in byte size? that's actually 8. What is this right here? Use the man ping command to consult ping's manual pages. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and try that because we're gonna consult its. So there you go. So this is pretty much how I got the answers. I typed in man and ping, trying to find /s. So yeah, anyways, moving on to the next one. Does MS window firewall block ping default? And the answer is Y for this one. Moving on to deploy the virtual machine for this task, and using the attack box terminal, issue the command ping /c10.10.247.253. How many ping replies did you get back? So basically you just have to look right here. That'll be 10. Now we actually already did this. So just to show you, so anyways, I'm gonna show you real quick, but we're gonna press Q just to quit. Alright, anyways, right here was our 10.10. As you can see, we received 10 back, and we're free to move on to the next task. Moving on to task 4, traceroute. As the name suggests, the traceroute command traces the route taken by the packets from your system to another host. The purpose of traceroute is to find the IP address of the route or hops that packet traverses as it goes from your system to a target host. This command also reveals the number of routers between the two systems. It is helpful as it indicates the number of hops routers between your system and the target host. However, note that the route taken by the packet might change as many routers use dynamic routing protocols that adapt to network changes. On Linux and Mac OS, the command to use is traceroute 10.10.247.253. So we'll go ahead and copy paste this real quick and try it out. I'm gonna edit paste. And on MS Windows, it is trace cert 10.10. Let me see, 60 byte. Okay, tries to discover the routes across the path from your system to the target system. There is no direct way to discover the path from your system to a target system. We rely on ICMP to trick the router into revealing their IP address. We can accomplish this by using a small time to live TTL in the IP header file. Although the T in the TTL stands for time, TTL indicates the maximum number of routers hops that a packet can pass through before being dropped. TTL is not a maximum number of time units. When a router receives a packet, it decrements the TTL by 1 before passing it to the next router. The following figure shows that each time the IP packet passes through a router, its TTL value is decremented by 1. Initially, it leaves the system with a TTL value of 64. It reaches the target with a TTL value of 60 after passing through 4 routers. That's just an example right there. However, if the TTL reaches 0, it will be dropped and the ICMP time to live exceeded will be sent to the original sender. In the following figure, the system set TTL to 1 before sending it to the router. The first router on the path decrements the TTL by 1, resulting in a TTL of 0. Consequently, this router will discard the packet and send an ICMP time exceeded in a transit error message. Note that some routers are configured not to send such ICMP messages when discarding a packet. On Linux, traceroute will start by sending UDP datagrams with IP packets of TTL being 1. Thus, it caused the first router to encounter a TTL equals 0, send an ICMP time to live exceeded back. Hence, a TTL of 1 will reveal the IP address of the first router to you. Then it will send another packet with TTL equals 2. This packet will be dropped at the second router, and so on. Let's try this on the live systems. In the following example, we run the same command, traceroute tryhackme.com. From tryhackme's attack box, we notice that different runs might lead to different routes taken by the packets. Trace A. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste this and see if it happens in mine. But if not, we will just go by what it's saying. Okay, so yeah, so we get what it's saying. Trace route A. Well, I don't quite have everything it says right there, but nonetheless it did populate. In the trace route output above, we have numbered 14 number lines. Each line represents one route / hop. Our system sends 3 packets with TTL to set D1, then 3 packets with TTL set to 2, and so forth. Depending on the network topology, we might get replies from up to 3 different routers. Depending on the route taken by the packet, consider line number 12 routers with the list. The IP address has dropped the packets 3 times and sent an ICMP time exceeded in a transit message. The line 12. That's interesting. Don't quite see line 12 on mine. Shows the time in milliseconds for each reply to reach our system. On the other hand, we can see that we received only a single reply on the third line, the 2 stars in the output. Let's see the third line. Okay, so I do have this one, kinda. Indicated that our system didn't receive 2 expected ICMP times exceeded in a transit message. Finally, in the first line of the output, we can see that the packet leaving the attack box takes different routes. We can see 2 routers that responded to TTL being 1. Our system never received the third expected ICMP message. Traceroute B. In the second run of the traceroute program, we noticed that the packet took a longer route this time, passing through 26 routers. If you are running a trace route to a system within your network, the route will be unlikely to change. However, we cannot expect the route to remain fixed when the packets need to go via other routers outside our network. To summarize, we can notice the following. The number of hops / routers being between your system and the target system depends on the time you are running trace routes. There is no guarantee that your packets will always follow the same route, even if you are on the same network or you repeat the traceroute command within a short time. Some routers return a public IP address. You might examine a few of these routers based on the scope of the intended penetration testing. Some routers don't return reply. Moving on to task 4, traceroute. As the name suggests, the traceroute command traces the route taken by the packets from your system to another host. The purpose of traceroute is to find the IP address of the routers or hops that a packet traverses as it goes from your system to a target host. This command also reveals the number of routers between the two systems. It is helpful as it indicates the numbers of hops, routers between your system and the target host. However, note that the router taken by the packets might change, as many routers use dynamic routing protocols that adapt to network changes. On Linux and Mac OS, the command to use is traceroute 10.10.225.117, and on MS Windows is traceroute 10.10.225.117. Traceroute tries to discover the routers across the path from your system to target systems. There is no direct way to discover the path from your systems to a target system. We rely on ISCMP to trick the routers into revealing their IP address. We can accomplish this by using a small time to live, or TTL, in the IP header field. Although the T in TTL stands for time, TTL indicates the maximum number of routers hops that a packet can pass through before being dropped. TTL is not a maximum number of time units. When a router receives a packet, it decrements the TTL by 1 before passing it to the next router. The following figure shows that each time the IP packet passes through a router, its TTL value is decremented by 1. Initially, it leaves the system with a TTL value of 64. It reaches the target system with a TTL value of 60 after passing through 4 routers. And right here is the example. You guys can pause the video and look at it. However, if the TTL reaches 0, it will be dropped and an ICMP time to live exceeded would be sent to the original sender. In the following figure, the system set TTL to 1 before sending it to the router. The first router on the path decrements the TTL by 1, resulting in a TTL of 0. Consequently, this router will discard the packet and send an ICMP time exceeded in transit error message. Note that some routers are configured not to send such ICMP messages when discarding a packet. On Linux, traceroute will stand by sending a UDP datagrams with IP packets of TTL being 1. Thus, it causes the first router to encounter a TTL equals 0 and send an ICMP time to live exceeded back. Hence, a TTL of 1 will reveal the IP address of the first router to you. Then it will send another packet with TTL equals 2. This packet will be dropped at the second router, and so on. Let's try this on live systems. In the following examples, we run the same command, traceroute. Traceroute tryhackme.com from tryhackme's attack box. We noted that different runs might lead to different routes taken by the packets. So let's go ahead and get this terminal going. So it's asking us to put this right here, traceroute. tryhackme.com. It's telling me it's not being found. I'm gonna try one more time. There you go. I must have misspelled something. So you have trace route A right here. In traceroute output above, we have 14 numbered lines. Each line represents one router slash hop. Our system sends 3 packets with TTL set to 1. Then 3 packets with TTL set to 2, and so forth. Depending on the network topology, we might get replies from up to 3 different routers, depending on the route taken by the packet. Consider line number 12. The 12th router with the listed IP address has dropped the packet 3 times and sent an ICMP time exceeded in transit message the line. It's talking about this right here. Shows shows the time in milliseconds for each reply to reach our system. On the other hand, we can see that we received only a single reply on the 3rd line. The 2 stars in the output, this right here, indicates that our system didn't receive 2 expected ICMP time exceeded in the transit message. Finally, in the first line of the output, we can see that the packets leaving the attack box take different routes. We can see 2 routers that respond to TTL being 1. Our system never received the 3rd expected ICMP message. Moving on to trace route B. So I believe this right here is basically wanting us to do this. I just try it again. In the second run of a trace route program, we noticed that the packets took a longer route, this time passing through 26 routers. If you are running a trace route to a system within your network, the route will be unlikely to change. However, we cannot expect the route to remain fixed when the packets need to go via other routers outside our network. To summarize, we can notice the following. The number of hops / routers between your system and the target system depends on the time you are running trace route. There is no guarantee that your packets will always follow the same route, even if you are on the same network or you repeat the trace route command within a short time. Some routers return a public IP address. You might examine a few of these routers based on the scope of the intended penetration testing. Some routers don't return a reply. Alright guys, moving on to answer the questions below. So for the first one, in traceroute A, what is the IP address of the last router / hop before reaching tryhackme.com? So basically you're going to go scroll up to traceroute A, and as you can see it's right here, 172.67. So go ahead and copy paste that, put it on there, click correct answer. Moving on to second one, in traceroute B, what is the IP address of the last router / hop before reaching tryhackme.com? So we go over here, copy paste that onto here, click correct answer. Moving on to the third one, in traceroute B, how many routers are between the 2 systems? That's 26. You could just tell by right here the last number that there is. Moving on to the last one, start the attached virtual machine from task 3. If it is not already started on the attack box, run traceroute 10.10.225.117. Check how many routers / hops are there between the attack box and the target virtual machine. gonna try it one more time. I'm not sure what happened. So there's apparently 30 hops. But anyways, guys, yeah, that's it for this part. I'll see you in the next one. Moving on to task 5, Telnet. The Telnet or Tel-type network protocol was developed in 1969 to communicate with a remote system via a command line interface, or as CLI. Hence, the command Telnet uses the Telnet protocol for remote administration. The default port used by Telnet is 23. From a security perspective, Telnet sends all the data, including a username and passwords, in clear text. Sending in clear text makes it easy for anyone who has access to communication channel to steal the login credentials. The secure alternative is SSH or Secure Shell protocol. However, the client with the simplicity can be used for other purposes. Knowing that the Telnet client relies on the TCP protocol, you can use Telnet to connect to any service and grab its banner. Using Telnet.10.225.117 port, which would be the port 80 right here. They're using the example. I'm gonna go ahead and try that actually. At port 80. It's telling me unavailable to connect to remote host, no route to host. Alright. So you can connect to any service running on TCP, even exchange a few messages unless it uses encryption. Let's say we want to discover more information about a web server listening on port 80. We connect to a server at port 80, then we communicate using the HTTP protocol. You don't need to dive into the HTTP protocol. You just need to issue the get/http/1.1 to specify something other than the default index page. You can issue get/page.html http/1.1, which will request a page.html. We also specify to remote web servers that we want to use HTTP version 1.1 for communication to get a valid response instead of an error. You need to input some value for the host example and hit enter twice. Executing these steps will provide requesting index page. Of particular interest for us, discovering the type and version of the installed web server. In this example, we communicate with a web server, so we use basic HTTP commands. If we connect to mail server, we need to use a proper command based on the protocol, such as SMTP or npop3. Alright, moving on to answer the questions below. So basically, the how to do this, you basically have to go in here. I'm going to go ahead and copy paste this. So you type that in, and after that you got to type this in right here, git slash http enter. Then you're gonna hit paste again, and you're gonna type this again. (1.1) enter. Now we have pretty much everything that we need. So for answer the questions below, start the attached virtual machine from task 3 if not already started. On the attack box, open the terminal and use the telnet client to connect to the virtual machine on port 80. What is the name of the running server? So as you can see, server is Apache. Type that in and move on to the next one. What is the version of the running server on port 80 of the virtual machine? That's right here, 2.4.10, and that completes this part. 6. Netcat. Netcat, or simply NC, has different applications that can be of great value to a pen tester. Netcat supports both TCP and UDP protocols. It can function as a client that connects to a listening port. Alternatively, it can act as a server that listens on a port of your choice. Hence, it is a convenient tool that you can use as simple client or server over TCP or UDP. First, you can connect to a server as you did with Telnet to collect its banner using NC 10.10.225.115 at port 80, or the right here, well, basically what we did for Telnet and port 80. Note you might need to press shift enter after get line. So we're gonna try this now. Git, sorry about that, slash http slash 1.1. It's showing that we have a bad request. Alright, we'll be back to this. Oh, it says no, you might need to press shift enter after get line. Alright, so we're gonna try that real quick. I'm sorry, shift enter. Let me see. I'm gonna paste that again. So git, sorry. Alright, so we're still getting the same thing. Alright, so in the terminal shown above, we use netcat to connect to 10.10.225.117 port 80 using nc.10.10.225.117 port 80. Next, we issued a git for the default page using git slash http slash 1.1. We are specifying to the target sorry about that, server that our client supports HTTP version 1.1. Finally, we need to give a name to our host, so we added on a new line, host : netcat. You can name your host anything, as this has no impact on this exercise. Based on the output server NGINF NX/1.62, we can tell that on port 80 we have, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that word right there, version 1.6.2, listening for incoming connections. You can use Netcat to listen on TCP port and connect to a listening port on another system. On the server system where you want to open a port and listen on it, you can issue NC/1P1234, or better yet NC/VNLP1234, which is equivalent to this right here. As you will remember from the Linux room, the exact order of the letters does not matter as long as the port is processed by /P. I'm going to go through the option and the meaning. So /L, listen mode, /P, specify the port number, /N, numeric only, no resolution of host name via DNS, /V, verbose, output optional yet useful to discover any bugs, /VV, variables optional, /K, keeps listening after client disconnects. Notes: the option /P should appear just before the port number you want listening on. The option /N will avoid DNS lookups and warnings. Port numbers less than 1024 require root privileges to listen on. On the client side, you would issue NC.10.10.225.117 port number. Here's an example of using NC to echo. After you successfully establish a connection to the server, whatever you type on the client side will be echoed on the server side and vice versa. Consider the following example. On the server side, we will listen on port 1234. We can achieve this with the command NC right here and NCPLV123. In our case, the listening server has IP address of 10.10.225.117, so we can connect to it from the client side by executing this right here. I'm gonna go ahead and try it. As you can see, we're listening already. This setup would echo whatever you want. You type on the side to the other side of the TCP tunnel. You can find a recording of the process below. Note that the listening server is on the left side of the screen. Alright guys, so now we're back. So I'm gonna type this in, NC 10.10.99.22. I have port 21. We're going to press enter. Not sure why it's saying that. Go ahead and copy paste this. Port 21. Alright, right there you go. So I'm not sure why it works better when you copy paste it, but for this right here it's 0.17, and there you have it. Moving on to the next one. On to task 7, putting it all together. In this room we have covered many various tools. It is easy to put a few of them together via a shell script to build a primitive network and system scanner. You can use traceroute to map the path to the target, ping to check if the target system responds to ICMP, echo and telnet to check which port are open and reachable by attempting to connect to them. Available scanners do this at much of advanced sophisticated levels, as we will see in the next 4 rooms with Nmap. Now I'm going to be going over the command and the example. So we have ping, and then we have ping/c 10 machine IP on Linux Mac OS. And this is probably saying the machine. Hold on, I might as well do this. I'm going to start it because it's probably just saying that because I have not started the machine. So ping/n and 10 and the IP address on MS Windows, traceroute and then traceroute and the machine IP on Linux or Mac OS. And then we have tracer on tracer and then the machine IP on MS Windows, and then we'd have the telnet. So I'm gonna just let you go ahead and read all of that. So moving on to, although these are fundamental tools, they are readily available on most systems. In a particular web browser is installed on particularly every computer and smartphone can be an essential tool in your arsenal for conducting reconnaissance without raising alarms. If you want to gain more profound knowledge of the developer's tools, we recommend joining Walking an Application. Operating systems. Moving on to the operating system, so we have developer tool shortcuts. So you have Linux or Windows, which is Control-Shift-I, and then Mac OS you got the Option plus Command plus I. So moving on to the answer the questions below. Ensure that you gain mastery over the different basics yet essential tools we presented in this room before moving on to the more sophisticated tools. And all you do, we just click complete. Congratulations guys, we have moved on to a new task.